Welcome to Walsall United WFC.
Good evening and welcome back to Walsall United WFC. It's the Ben and Matt show, Saturday Night Live. We are sorry we didn't come to you last week, live or a pre-record. Just schedules clashed and United were playing at Old Trafford and I couldn't get anywhere near back here in time to start a show, so I do apologise. Connor, on cheese triangles, mate, I already thought that Matt, just before the show started, was eating cheese sandwiches that ended up being tuna, so... We're on tuna today, unfortunately. Evening, Robert. Evening, John. And evening to Matt and evening to the other John. How are we all?
Yeah, good, thanks. Hi, guys.
Good. Matt, have you been up to much today, pal?
No, the usual, pal, on a Saturday. Football, watch football, go out, do a few bits and come home. Before recovering for tomorrow's football. So, you know,
absolutely.
One of them, pal. Same old, doesn't change.
John, have you been up to much today yourself, pal?
Yeah, I've been to watch a couple of the matches of the girls that we coach. Struggling with a bad calf at the moment, so it's Uber to the station to near the match, relying on parents to pick me up, then drop me back, and it takes a bit of time, but it gets rid of a Saturday, which is nice.
John, I hope you have a speedy recovery for your COVID there, pal. Don't worry about it, mate. Don't worry about it. And to you, John, I hope you have a speedy recovery from your calf injury. You know, it's everybody seems to be either injured or ill at the minute. So I wish everybody a speedy recovery. On that as well, I'm wishing Mannion a speedy recovery from her ACL injury that's been reported today. So really wishing a speedy recovery. Matt, how much of a big blow is that for us going towards the back end of our season now, chasing Champions League football?
Massive, but I think, to be honest, this was a worry of mine. I said this back in summer and I got absolutely lynched. I said, how well is her knee going to hold up after 2 years of playing 7 games? Because she came back from Man City and I think she managed 7 games between the January to May. And I said, playing week in, week out, how much of an impact is it going to have and will a knee break down? Everyone kept saying, no, you're wrong. You don't know this. You don't know that. And look what's happened, you know, and I don't want to sit here and, you know, claim things like that because at the end of the day, it's not great. But I just think, you know, people were warned about this. And like I say, I got absolutely lynched by Birmingham fans, City fans, United fans. Oh, you don't know what you're on about, blah, blah, blah. And look what's happened. So it just goes to show that when you do your ACL twice, it does weaken the knee and the surrounding muscles. But obviously, maybe I clearly don't know what I'm on about. But yeah, I think in terms of that, it's one of them. I think, you know, we've sort of been light at the back, haven't we? We're missing Millie probably for the rest of the season as well. We've got Thor and we've got Coldwell. Obviously, I'm assuming Thor had COVID. Mark alluded to something about that on...
yeah, I think it was, yeah.
Game. He said, you know, we've got COVID and things like that, and Zellum had to drop in at the back. So it's not great, and we are thin on the ground. And listen, Manning's been our best centre-half this year. Terrific signing, proved many people wrong. But yeah, it's just a blow. You know, I don't know how else to explain it, really. Your best centre-half being injured now for 12 months, you know, and not only does it rule her out of, you know, sort of the rest of this season, but next season. And to be fair, for me, she was an outside pick for the Euros. You know, I don't think Horton's going to make it, or she shouldn't be making it, because they reckon she'll be back about June time, which I don't think is fair on others that have played consistently. But, you know, that's football. And, yeah, we're going to have to go in summer and either promote a development player or get a new centre-half, I think.
John, cause I know that you're involved in women's football quite a lot from academy point of view. Do all these common ACL injuries in the women's game really worry you for the next generation coming up? Because it seems to be an injury that hampers the women's game more than it does the men's game quite a lot. Is there ways that you look to try and prevent these injuries, to try and teach the girls maybe a different technique in what they're doing, or is it just one of those things? Unfortunately, that's just one of those things that happen scientifically.
I think it's one of them things. It is scientific as well. I've been told by several people it's proven that it's more common in women than in men, whether it's the structure of the body, whether it's the strength around the knee, because football's physical, whether it's men's or women's. And it is increasingly happening more in youngsters. When I coached a team before I started off Get Pro Academy, my best player snapped her cruciate doing long jump in sports day. When she was 15, we just got her into Chelsea, and then she'd done sports day before the end of the term, and she snapped her cruciate, and she had other interests then. By the time she come back, it ruined her. There's another girl we look after who is currently about 8 months post-op, and as you know, Eleni has done it as well. A girl we talk to quite a lot, Sarah, has come over from Canada. She's just got over it, and it's very, very common. I think the fact is what Matt said is that it actually does weaken that part of the body, which means it could happen again. And it's also a blow to the player. It's a blow to United, but it's also a blow to herself. She's now going to be thinking, I've done it 3 times. Am I going to come back? She probably will come back, but she's going to have it in the back of her mind. It takes a lot for a player to get over it, make that first tackle again. I know for a factor like Elenia, she's doing really well in her recovery, but she went up for a header and landed badly. And the next time when she goes up for her first proper header, will she go up with conviction? It takes a lot. So all you can really do is what we're doing is we're starting to bring in strengthening and conditioning into the girls from 11, and just seeing if that extra little bit of conditioning and strengthening those key joints and muscles, or the muscles around the joints and the ligaments, if it helps. It might just be fate, where you're lucky or you're not. I mean, you've only got to look at some tackles that happen and you sort of think, wow, that's a leg breaker, and they get up, and then somebody suddenly goes up for a header, lands, and they roll their ankle, they break their ankle. I don't know if it's fate. I don't know if it's technique or what it is, but I suppose all we can do is do our best to try and get them as fit and as strong as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. That's all you could do as coaches, and especially when it comes to girls that are developing still growing, and still have a lot of muscle to put on and everything as they get older, and as they're developing their footballing careers. So yeah, as you said, it's only something that you can hopefully strengthen, and hopefully that we can one day maybe something scientifically can be researched and developed and done to maybe help prevent these sort of injuries for in the women's game. But unfortunately, at the minute, it seems to be part and parcel of it. Moving on from that, I'm going to go to the main topic, if I may. This one's going to be led by Matt a little bit because he knows what he's talking about. But this is an article written by Arsenal legend Ian Wright, who's a big advocate of the women's game. And before we get into the article, I just want to ask both your opinions on how good is it to have a big voice like Ian Wright, from the men's game, a legend, an Arsenal legend, an England legend, advocating the women's game, always sticking up for the women. You see him on Twitter; he's always sticking up for the women's game. You see, he's always on the adverts. I know that he does a lot with Barclays, or as well. Promoting the women's game and promoting the Player of the Month awards and what have you. I'll come to you first, but how good is it to have a sort of legendary figurehead like that? From the men's game, promoting the women's game.
It's big. I mean, listen, obviously you see him right in the stands at Boreham Wood. You see him at, Wembley or wherever the Lionesses are playing. He does it both as a fan and as a pundit. And I think you need something like that. There's not many pundits from the male side that will come out and, analyse a women's game, watch a women's game. You don't see likes of your Gary Nevilles do it. Whoever else, people like that. And I'm actually quite surprised because obviously Gary comes from a sporting family. His brother managed the national team. His sister coaches and does a netball. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and slate people. At the end of the day, it's whatever people want to do. But I think having somebody like he, and I think now I'm sure he did. Was it the Player of the Month awards? He used to actually give out.
Barclays,
well. Yeah, really involved in that. So I think somebody like that and sort of I don't know, having that in your corner, you know, somebody that's been there on the international stage, somebody that's well respected, you know, he's won bits with Arsenal. And I think it gets people involved, doesn't it? People are now saying, oh, well, Ian Wright watches this, let's have a look. Or Ian Wright was talking about such a player the other day. I wonder if they're playing this week. Things like that, you know, it makes a massive difference for me.
John, for yourself, as an academy, as a person heavily involved in the women's game at academy level, I was like Ian Wright promoting the women's game. Do you think that sort of inspires the next generation? I know, forgive me, I know that Ian Wright is probably more my era, you know, of growing up in the 90s and early 90s. You know, he was a legendary player for Arsenal. I know a lot of young girls and a lot of young lads some of them probably won't even know who he is, but considering he's an Arsenal legend and he's heavily involved with the women's game, do you think that sort of inspires the next generation, seeing that there's a massive figure there from men's football that has been there, he's won the Premier League for Arsenal, he's won the double for Arsenal, let's be fair, one of the Premier League's all-time leading goal scorers. How big is that from your point of view as an academy?
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive. One of the unique things we have is we have female players coming to our sessions.
That's right.
So any Hermione Cole, Martha Thomas. There's another United player I spoke to last weekend who might be coming as well in the weeks that Martha can't come. An international player as well, which is really good and which is amazing. And she's massive, by the way. And the girls see them and they're big. So don't forget, all these girls have got parents. So whether they don't really know Ian Wright, the parents will, you know, and on television, he's on ITV, which is mainstream channel. Yeah, it's huge because all due respect to the women players that even we work with, Ian Wright usurps all of them. You know, he's been there, he's done it, he's won trophies that, you know, and he scored over 100 Premier League goals, obviously. And yeah, he is a legend. So yeah, all it can do for me is someone like that can just inspire girls. And I think it would inspire the younger players that are currently playing in the Championship and the WSL as well, because they can think, wow, you know, they want equality, which is miles away, sadly. But if they can see someone like Ian Wright getting involved, I think it would give them hope that, you know, the gap's closing a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm gonna let Matt read with this next part because he knows the article. Unfortunately, I've only just skimmed over it because I have to put all my hands up. I've been watching a lot of football today, and I watched a bit of the Formula One, trying to get into the hype, which if Connor's still watching, Connor loves his Formula One, so I'm trying to get in there to banter him about Formula One a little bit. So I do apologise. I've skimmed the article a little bit, but I know Matt knows a lot about this, and I know that John's going to be a perfect guest to answer these sort of questions. So I'm going to hand over to Matt for a little bit, and then I'll jump in as and when.
I'm honoured, Ben. Thanks. Yes, obviously it was about 7, 8, maybe 9 days ago now. Ian Wright wrote an article. And it was basically looking to get the next generation of girls involved in football, what we can do to boost numbers, break down barriers, increase participation, things like that. And I think what the article basically said was, you know, I mean, we'll get into this, I said to you, Benny, shortly, but, you know, lack of role models was one. Lack of facilities and decent coaches was another one. And then the opportunity. And there was a survey done, and it said that 63% of schools offered girls football in PE. So, I mean, it's not brilliant. It's over half. And then that number dropped to 40% of extracurricular girls football activities. Now, obviously, you know, football is a national sport. It's probably the biggest sport in this country, easily. Potentially worldwide in other countries, it's probably the dominant sport as well. It's supposed to be for everyone, but I think for me, those stats show that actually that's not quite how it reads. You know, if you're an outsider and you have no sporting background and you're saying, well, hang on a sec, why have we only got 40% of schools or local areas offering extracurricular activities? It's like, what's going on? So Ian Wright's obviously written this article in the Telegraph, sort of goes into his career and his role model at school, He talks about, players like Lucy Bronze that obviously, up in the Northeast, it was very difficult upbringing and there wasn't a lot of money and there wasn't much sort of help sort of from the FA facility wise. And it was really interesting. There's a lot on it, which obviously, there's fors and againsts, as per every good sort of article. But this one obviously goes in depth and Ian talks about role models now and obviously growing up for the likes of Lucy Bronze. There was nobody for her as such to look up to in the women's game. And again, it's just about, the word opportunity comes up a lot, but it's just about providing the opportunity, providing the facility, looking at what can be improved. And especially with the home Euros, I think it's the time now where we should be saying, wow, look at this. This local area's got that. This local area's got these facilities. This local area's putting this on. This school are doing this tournament, And I can speak from experience that obviously schools I've worked at in the past and obviously now, again, it's spot on. There's very little, you say, well, hang on, where's your girls team? And say, well, they play with the lads. He said, well, what do you do that for? And you've got sort of 15 to 20 girls interested in playing football. Why would you have one big team? Why would you not just split and have a team of girls and a team of boys? And then it's usually the excuses of nobody wants to run it or something like, oh, it clashes with the boys. So, we put the boys on first. And obviously, again, it's things like initiatives the FA do, like the Wildcat sessions, things that John does as well. Obviously, we've got one up here now that I'm involved in, in Manchester. But it's a whole host of things, really. But I think that first and foremost, it's about getting people involved, giving them that opportunity, and making it fun. I think that's got to be the very first thing. You can work with players when they enjoy it and they want to listen. And I think they're things what obviously Ian talks about. You need to let girls out there, school pitches, playgrounds, sports hall, park. You've got to let them get out there and play, and they're only going to enjoy it by experiencing it and kicking a ball about. So, yeah, very, very big article, very good article as well. So, yeah, that was a brief 4 or 5 minute summary. So pick out of that what you like, Ben or John, whoever.
Well, first and foremost, though. With schools, I'm going to come to John on this one because, in fact, I'm going to come to you as well, Matt, on this one because I know that you work at school, and I'm not so sure how it's structured in school anymore. But when I was in school, we're going back a few years now, I know, we was always allowed to play against other schools. We always allowed to go to trips with school into Europe, play against European teams. We used to have cup competitions, inter-school city competitions. We used to have a Yorkshire-Lancashire Cup as well, where we used to go into Yorkshire, play against Yorkshire schools, and then come over to Lancashire, play against those, Is there such a thing like that anymore? Because when my brother sort of came through school, forgive me, he's about 5-6 years younger than me, they stopped all that, saying, oh, listen, now we don't do all that now. It's, and they started promoting everybody's a winner, nobody's a loser and stuff like that. Is that still quite going on at school now? Have they all changed it now? We've all gone back to...
Do you know what? It is and it isn't. It's hit and miss. Like, I've got to be careful I don't lynch my own school here. But basically, we do have opportunities, not in every sport, but we have opportunities for boys and girls teams. And I think that for me is the bugbear. The emphasis is on, sort of not always winning and losing, but more like, we've got the set of lads who are great lads, dead competitive. And then on the flip side, they're being told one thing. And then other people that aren't as competitive are being told it's about the taking part. So for me, there's already an imbalance there because you're telling the lads it's about winning and development. Not me personally, by the way, before anybody comes to me. This isn't my philosophy at all. And then on the other side, he's saying it's about fun and taking part and being a team and things like that, and learning sort of those values. And I think that there needs to be a clear message first and foremost. And I've seen it in other schools, there's some schools and, as soon as you walk in the reception, there's trophy cabinet full and the boasting, this is what we've won, that's what we've won, which is great. But it's usually at the expense of everybody else. So if you've got, I don't know, poor little Tommy that maybe isn't the best at football, is he going to stand a chance of getting in that team if they're focused on winning? Probably not. So I think in general, like I say, obviously my school is one thing. And I know, like I say, being in other schools and still doing bits of coaching, even now, it's very mismatched. But there is opportunities to play over schools. But again, your costs and your money comes massively into it. You say, well, we haven't got transport, we can't get a bus, right? Okay, then you're relying on volunteers, but then because it's volunteers, you've got to go through safeguarding, health and safety forms. John, you'll know it's just paperwork heavy, and I think I understand it, but it's difficult because then once you've got to put all that in place, it's finding somebody to do that. We have a PE coordinator and she's fantastic, but then sometimes I'll say, well, I'll help you do this, or I'll help you do that. And it's just the time, more so in schools than anything. So I do think it is an issue in terms of that. I do feel like there should be more and there could be more, but then it's the old thing of, who's going to actually do it and volunteer. Can 3 or 4 staff members in a school say, right, well, I'll do this, you do that, I'll do this, and split it? Or is it just left to one person? I think for me, that's the key sort of learning to take from this. It's just organisation, really, as well as funding. So very underfunded.
Yeah. John, on the schools thing, though, because I find it baffling that, I don't know whether this came from the government or whether it came wherever it came from, that they stopped this sort of competitions against schools and different schools. And I can maybe understand the reason why they're trying to promote everybody's a winner, nobody's a loser and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But does it have a hindrance when you're seeing, like, the youngest of your players coming through the academy? Forgive me, I can't remember the youngest age you take girls into the academy from. Is it 10? Sorry, mate. Yeah. So do you see those 10-year-olds at a bit of a disadvantage because maybe they don't play a lot against maybe different schools, or maybe they can't go, because we used to, when I was at school, this was back in the late 90s, early 2000s, we even had a girls' team in school. It was one of the first schools to have a girls' team, and they went across to Europe as well to play Italian sides and Spanish sides with us when we went on school trips, which was good, and they played against other female sides. Do you think stuff like that now is hampering maybe the next generation coming through, that they can't go and play against other schools, they can't go on a school tour to go to Italy, to go to Spain to try and see how it is to play against some of the girls that are up and coming in European? Because the one thing that I noticed about European football, even back then I thought I was quite fit, I could get up and down the pitch, I was quite quick, was some of these Italian kids were skipping right past me, leaving me for dead. The fitness levels and the skill set levels were always at a different sort of stage to us. Do you think that sort of hampers the girls coming to the academy at 10, that they don't have this sort of opportunities, or they don't have this sort of competition to maybe bring them onto the next sort of level?
Yeah, you're right. It does hamper them. It's, and also what Matt said about no one's a loser. And I mean, obviously you don't want to call anyone a loser. Let's just get that straight.
That's of course. No, yeah.
But, we were having a conversation today at one of the matches where I've spoken to Matt before about one of our girls called Freya. She's 11. She scored 2 more today. She's got 46 goals this season already. And she scores from 20 yards. And the team won 4-0 today in a friendly because they're getting ready for their cup semi-final. But they were a little off. And the competition's not there in their league either. So not being able to do it at school and not playing against other schools and having that level of competition, I think it does hamper it. And I think it will show more. I would encourage more of what we do, even if it's not us. For me, it provides that extra level of training, but more intensity. When we train with intensity, like it's a match. I tend to find that because, as you said, people are trying to be protected from losing, and it's the taking part, which obviously that is important. You've got to learn how to win and to lose, and sometimes it's good to lose, if that makes sense, in a sort of a backward sort of way, because it makes the winning and teaches you to win that much more special. But I think it hampers, and I think it will go on and hamper the national team if we don't sort of click out of it, because if girls only learn it when they get into they won't get into academies. If they go to an academy trial and they think, oh, I'm going to let you have the ball because you may score, they're just going to get their name scrubbed off. So it will end up hindering. I mean, again, totally off subject, but Usain Bolt is the fastest guy ever to run the 100 meters. But we don't actually know that he is. There may be someone out there who's never been discovered that's quicker than him. Yeah. So that's why it's important that you have to get everybody training and in the limelight at the highest level they can be at an early age, because it helps development. The leading girls at our academy, even the 11-year-olds, we took them to one of our new link-ups with a club in West London, a French club, who've got a link straight through to the RC Lens feminine team, or Feman they're called, the women's RC Lens team. And we were doing a no tackling session, but with movement, Freya was holding her own with under 15s who are 4 years older than her, because the under 15s, they just train grassroots, the French team, but Freya, we make them want to win. We make their training sessions like it's a match. They tackle. I went to a match today and there was hardly any tackling. There was a few blocks, if that makes sense, but they're just not encouraged to tackle anymore. They're encouraged not to head the ball anymore. Some coaches are told not to even let kids head the ball. And girls go in, I call it the tortoise. They go in and their neck goes into their body, and if they do actually head it, it's going to cause them more damage. So sorry I've gone a bit off track there, but it's just, for me, competition is important, not only for growing up and developing and learning. I think that helps you learn how to lose as well if you're not gifted a win. I wouldn't let my son beat me at FIFA, because what's the point of that? And it only took him a long time before, if it was a boxing match, I'd have stopped it at half time. He's, so because he learned he had to be good, he did, and I think that's really important for competition. And that's not me saying if you're rubbish, you can't play or you can't join us, because there's a level for everybody, which is, said, like the FA do Wildcats. We're going to start bringing in mini kickers next year, or the equivalent of mini kickers next year. And just one quick example, sorry to go on, one quick example, that the team when I was coaching, they won everything for 3 years. And I never thought at the time I would see girls that were better than my team. We were grassroots and we were playing in the Chelsea Cup and we were playing in the Reading Cup against academy teams and holding our own, not winning, but holding our own. But these girls we've got now, because we've got hold of them at such an early age, they're going to be better. They're going to surpass my team. They are just phenomenal. And Matt can probably say the talent of Manchester's really good as well.
Yeah, I think, do you know what, though? You said you were going off there, John. I wouldn't say so, because I'd say that's so relevant, because I think, for me, learning from a young age, that's got to come first and foremost. You're talking about, obviously, the academy there, which is great, but I think, for me, it's got to be got right at the sort of lower levels. And I know, obviously, Benny, you're a parent, so you'll know more, but, you teach kids young how to kick a ball, the basics of working as a team, your passing, your moving, your things like that. And, it's like you said, you've got to teach them about winning and losing, because taking part is great, but you can't win at everything in life. And, I always, the way I've always taught it is winning and learning. I ban the word losing, because, like you say, no kid wants to be called a loser. So we call it winning and learning. So I say, right, well, we've not won, what we learned. And you get feedback and they say, right, well, okay, we didn't do this. We lost because of this. This didn't happen. This wasn't right. This wasn't great. And you know what? With the kids that are probably the 10s, 11s and 12s, it works wonders, because they're analysing their own performance, they're analysing as a team, and they're actually picking something up. And that for me is how it should be done. And again, this isn't just schools, this is all over. If you look at community coaching, again, if I walk down to my local, I don't know, we'll use a different sport, rugby team, how many people there are for a social, how many people are there because they want to learn, things like that. And that's what it is. That's basically what John was saying. You've got your what's the word? Like your developed players that are a high level, that are probably on the edge of academies, that can go to his coaching. You've then got another team that might say, well, we've got beginners, you're welcome here. and it's got to be promoted better to be accessible for me. But yeah, I do think it massively improves and helps, and especially higher up when this is hammered into kids from a younger age, so to speak.
Do you think we're at a disadvantage to European kids though? Because John touched upon it there, I think, about headering the ball and tackling going out the game now. Headering is a big thing that's being brought up. In fact, it got brought up in the early 90s, mid 90s by Gary Lineker. I remember the article in the newspaper saying, should kids be headering the football? And obviously, I know there's been a lot of players from the era when we had heavy footballs have been diagnosed with dementia and everything, and they reckon it's all linked to headering of football. Do you think it's right to be calling, or for coaches to be sort of saying, listen, we're going to stop up to a certain age group, we're going to stop headering, from this age to a particular age group, we'll stop headering, we'll stop tackling. And I don't think this is really, I think this is a thing in this country. I don't think it's really a European thing. I don't think it's really thought of in Europe. So do you think that the development of our next generation, the next lot of girls coming through in the women's game, is getting hampered by, and maybe rightly so, with the links to dementia, of headering the football, with links to like brain damage and everything that continues headering the football, that it may later on in life affect people. I know the balls these days are a lot lighter than they are now. They're like a feather to pick up now, but even still, concentrating headering the ball, it's still linked now scientifically, and scientists are still saying it could be. Could lead to later on in life brain damage. But we still see in the professional game, the Premier League, the women's game, WSL, all across, the sort of even semi-pro games, everything, they're still headering the ball now. Are we putting our next generation of kids coming through at a disadvantage by stopping things like headering the ball and maybe heavy tackling or whatever it may be that is also getting stopped at a certain age group till when they're a little bit older, John?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not one to break any rules. So if the rule come in, there was no header in, I would stick to it. Let's just say that.
Yeah, of course.
The rules. If a parent comes up to me and says, I don't want my daughter to head the ball, I wouldn't ask her to head the ball. Yeah. But the only way to protect, look, I know people, or I've heard of people with dementia that haven't played football. There's not every boxer who probably gets more head damage than a footballer gets dementia.
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
Some people get cancer at the age of 18 and some people don't get it all their lives. I think, again, it's fate. I think it's life. But the only way you're going to protect yourself is by learning to header the ball properly. So one of the little examples we do is I've got a sponge ball and a football, and we throw it gently just from me to like 2 yards away to head the ball. And if they close their eyes, I tell them to keep their eyes closed, and I throw the sponge ball at the top of their head or at their body, and it hits them. It doesn't hurt them because it's a sponge ball. Yeah. And it encourages them that, well, everybody knows if you close your eyes, you're not going to see what you're doing. It's like if someone's making a run and they run directly behind if you've got the ball. A ball doesn't go through a person. So you pick up the sponge ball and you say, you roll it or at the person's legs and say, well, that's what happens if the person who makes the run is right behind them. So I'm an advocate for heading because I like to play the game properly. And the only way, as I said, is to teach them how to protect people is to head it properly. And that's keep your eyes open and use your forehead. But as I said, if the FA actually did bring in no heading, then obviously we'd stick to that. And if a parent does come up to me and says, I don't want my daughter to head the ball, then we don't get we respect the parent not to head the ball. But if, for example, I'll use on a Badger as an example. She does everything. Yeah. I cannot imagine her pulling out of a header. Now, whether that's her or whether that's being brought up and having played for Barcelona and Madrid, I don't know. The top in her country, I don't know. It's pretty embarrassing if you don't head the ball, you duck out of it. at a top level. And if we're teaching our girls not to head the ball, or our boys, then we're going to end up with a lot of games where people don't head the ball properly, or it skims off the top of their head and goes behind them. I do think it's easier in Europe because they try to play the ball on the ground because you don't get pressed as much. Yeah. And we tend to have a lot of long balls. I think there's a lot of Premier League players that don't head the ball properly anyway, and you can see that. It just tends to be the centre-backs who are heading back goal kicks. I mean, look, I could head the ball, but I wasn't a fan of heading a goalkeeper's kick. Do you know what I mean? If you got it slightly wrong, it hurt, but you never even thought of it. And regarding tackling, I think, we used to tackle very hard. I'm sure you guys did as well when you were playing. And it wasn't, when I say it wasn't always the cleanest, you never went to hurt somebody, but you went in to win the ball. But there was never the injuries there are now. And it's because people aren't taught how to tackle. So you do get leg breakers because people go in over the ball because they're not taught how to tackle. So for me, I'm sorry if I'm a little bit passionate about this, but if we take from any age, but especially young age, when they're sponges, how to head the ball and how to tackle out the game will either be full of injuries and horrible tackles or just horrible to watch because there'll be no heading and there'll be no tackling. It'll be like tag football. That's my opinion. I don't know if you agree or if that's right, but that's my opinion.
I tend to agree, though, because you look at it now, even in the professional game now, the one thing, well, you do take United's Champions League game when we lost to Atletico over day, how much, especially Europeans, forgive me, I don't mean this to come out wrong, but they're like fairies. You have to breathe near them, they're rolling around on the floor, And it just seems like tackling seems to be a dying art in the game. You look at it, even in the Premier League, you look at it and you think, how many bad challenges there are now, when they're going over the top of the ball and there's 2-footed challenges going left, right, and centre. I just think, I used to think, though, yes, all right, the game used to be a lot dirtier back when I was growing up. You had the likes of Vinnie Jones, Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira, David Batty, Dennis Wise, players like these that used to go into full-blooded and used to go into tackles, and I just think that the art sort of died out now. And again, I don't know whether that's something that's sort of maybe again linked to going back to schools again. Whether because when I was at school, as you said, we used to go full-blooded. We used to like tackle. Obviously we never wanted to see our mates get injured or our teammates get injured. But it was never anything. That was never any thought in the back of anyone's mind when you were a kid. When you was at school. You wanted to prove that you was the best. You wanted to get into the school team because, at the end of the day, one of the best ways to get into the best teams around your local leagues was to impress at school level. It was back when I was playing, because you used to have a lot of scouts coming to school games, from local teams. They'll have always a local school game going on. So you used to always want to impress, and you always wanted to go in full-blooded into challenges. I mean, I used to play centre half, left back and then centre half. I used to go in full-blooded. I used to be called Jan Koller. I don't know if you remember the German player Jan Koller. With the skinhead and everything. He used to go in full-blooded and everything. But I just think, is it a detriment to the next generation coming through that we're not? We're not got school. We're not going to send coaches out to schools to teach PE teachers, for example, how to correctly teach kids how to tackle, because I remember back in my school days, we didn't have an awful lot like they've got, what kids have got now. You don't have the social media side, you don't have the YouTube, you don't have very rarely had game footage like you do now, of how to properly tackle. But at least your PE teachers would always teach you how, like you said, John, how to head the ball, how to tackle correctly, so you're not injuring players. I just wonder, is it linking back to the school thing again, where, like you said, like kids are not being taught from certainly from secondary school age,
starts before then, I said it starts before then. It's a shambles.
Well, but at least secondary school. You know what I'm saying. Yeah. If you're leaving it after secondary school, these players ain't developing at all.
No.
you know what I mean? I never really got coached at primary school level or anything like that, pal. You know,
it's better.
That wasn't around back in my day. The time I started having proper footballing coaching was in secondary school. Obviously, it's probably changed all now, like, you know.
Yeah.
But Matt, you work at schools. Do you think like we should be encouraging people, or should we be encouraging somebody from, I don't know, some coach from the FA to go out to local schools? Forgive me, I know there's not a vast load of coaches around, but surely, to give PE teachers, or to even give sessions themselves on how to correctly head of the ball, how to correctly tackle, and how to correctly do other things in the game that maybe you could maybe think is a dying art.
I think, well, I'll get onto that shortly. I think in general it's lacking, and I don't want to keep using money as an excuse, because to me, if you're employing somebody as a PE coordinator or somebody to teach PE, they should be correctly qualified. Now, not just schools. I think the trouble is, and I know, John, we've had conversations on this, a lot of grassroots stuff is run by volunteers, and a lot of them just go out and get a level 1. Mm-hmm. Now, without sounding horrible, I think the pass rate for a level 1 coaching course is something like 95%.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare to fail. It's literally a doddle. And I think that contributes to it, not just schools, but communities. You know, the amount of times I've been to places and I've seen somebody put something out or some session on, I say, well, what are you looking to achieve? And they go, well, we want them to play football, Matt. That's great. But what's the aim of your session? Is it passing? Is it movement? You know, and I know obviously, John, with yours, and it's something I've always done. We write in the session plans, the FA 4-corner models and what we want, as well as the progressions and things like that. And you see sometimes there's no progression. Oh, well, what we've done, well, we've kicked the ball about and we've passed it. Great. But what did you do after that to make that a little bit more challenging or to make it easier for kids that struggle? Well, we didn't. Oh, right. Okay. And I think that's a big issue. You know, I think in terms of girls football, you know, again, it's having people believe in them. You only have to go. I mean, John's talked to Freya earlier. You know, you only have to go around, you know, one of the sessions on a Wednesday night we do at FC United to see how many girls there are from different sort of, you know, schools, things like that, different areas that all come together. Mm-hmm. But yet the ability wise is top notch. You know, there's not a huge divide, which is what you want. And I think again, that's you know, that's belief in players, that's giving them opportunities, that's giving them correct coaching, a place to play. And I do think not just schools, like I say, I think it's in the general, you know, once they get that opportunity, how good's the coaching? What are they actually learning? You know, what's been there for them to really say, oh, well, actually, you know, mum and dad, we did this today in football and I learned this. This was how we built it. This was what we adapted. And this is what I can now do. And this is what I'm going to go home and work on. And it's having that conversation. And I just think, you know, you talked about there, can somebody not teach the teachers? Something that I spent years doing at Wigan Athletic was teacher CPD, where we go into schools sort of away from the academy, if you like, the downtime after schools. And we teach teachers and we put on courses and we'd say, right, you know, you lot here, you know, you want to learn about PE to make your lessons better. This is what we're going to teach you. And you go in and you'd upskill staff. But again, you know, time, cost, things like that, people willing to come and do it is, you know, is all those things that potentially, depending on your school or your local grassroots club, again, depends. A lot of it is finance driven and it's frustrating that the FA don't do more. Like I say, these wildcat sessions are okay. You know, good start. You know, the article that Ian Wright wrote in, they did something for 70,000 girls. But again, it was down in London. You know, it's great that they've got that opportunity down there. But I think for me, if we can get a level playing field, you know, what can we get up north? What can we get in the Midlands? What can we get sort of northeast section and bring everything together? Because let's not forget, you know, it's not like the FA are poor. You know, it's good that we've got a core start, but it needs to be better. And I think slowly, through coaching, through funding, through volunteers, everything like that, you're going to make it better. And I know, obviously, before we end, we're going to role models as well, which is another thing I'm big on.
Can football clubs do more, though? I know you said the FA and about, you know, about the money side of things and about, obviously, I know it all costs, but, you know, football clubs work in local communities. A lot of football clubs have sort of their affiliate schools, if you like, you know, where they work, where they work quite close to the schools. Could maybe, especially those that are affiliated to Premier League football clubs, could maybe the football clubs maybe do more than they are doing, you know, to teach the kids the next level, to teach the kids the correct way of doing things. Because I'm just thinking now, I don't want us to keep banging on about the FA should be doing this, should be doing that.
No.
But also, let's look at our football clubs that are vital to the local community, that are affiliated with schools, especially the big Premier League clubs as well. I know there's going to be cities and towns that don't have big Premier League clubs, that have lower league football clubs that don't have that kind of money, or don't have the kind of resources that maybe the bigger teams have. But certainly, can football clubs maybe do more? I don't know if these things still go on in the summer. We used to have like soccer schools and that run by Manchester United, Man City, whoever it may be, you know, Liverpool. I don't know football clubs. I know we're still in the midst of the pandemic. That's not well and truly gone away yet. But there's things like that still around, you know, where you have got your coaches from your footballing side, from your footballing community, you know, coming in and trying to teach kids, you know, how to do the basic things, you know. And at the end of the day, they get a little certificate and that, and you pass headering the ball, you pass shooting, you pass tackling, you pass knocking the ball low, or whatever it may be. Do we need to see a bit more of that as well coming back into the local communities? I'll come to you, John. Sorry, I forgot to.
Go for it.
I would support that totally. It happened when I was young. For me, I don't think girls' football was really even thought about when I was young, but it happened. But yeah, no, they could do more. That they're just, you know. Sadly, I think they need to help themselves more as well. We can, as you said, Benny, we can bang on about, oh, it's the FA. Yeah, the FA is. Just for an example, I tried to get a grant to start up Get Pro Academy, or to help with it. Because if you can pay for pitches in advance in a block, you get a discount. Yeah. And I was told that for startups, there's no money. But if I had an old piece of grass or an old clubhouse that I wanted to renovate, there's money for that. So the FA probably do need to look at that a bit more, because there'd be a lot more of what we do popping up if you could get a little bit of help, rather than saying you need a. But if you've already a club and you need your clubhouse doing up, well, yeah, we'll give you a grant for that. But if there's a club already running, they've already got funds. I'm not saying they all have money, but I think of that. But I do think that, you know, you can only be helped if you help yourself. And I think the WSL, perhaps some of the academies, and I don't want to again put my foot in it like Matt with his school earlier, but I do think that they say in life you can only be helped if you want to help yourself. Manchester United, for example, they have got a fortress. They've got a moat built around them. Do you know what I mean? They are so difficult to get into. I understand why, because Man United have built themselves up and they're an easy target. Pellets at them when they've got no business from different countries in the world. I totally understand it, but it's difficult, you know. I'm fortunate that we, and Matt knows this, and you know this now, that we work with one, and hopefully in the next month there'll be a second Manchester United player, which for me is massive, because I don't think there's any other potential academy that isn't run by a player that can say that, you know. And we're lucky that we've got other pros from other teams as well that work with us. So, but it is difficult to get into clubs. Let me just, you know, say that. Even when you're offering them players on a plate, because there's no money, they don't send scouts out to watch games, not for girls. There's no scouting at all. And even when you can offer them players on a plate, some don't even bother replying, which is frustrating. But we just have to keep banging on the door, because I think what we do is right, and anything we can do to help the game, irrespective of if it's us having to go to them 5 or 6 times to get a response, then we'll do it. Because, you know, we've got girls that are super talented and they need to be playing at a better level than what they are every week. We've got nearly 40 girls at Newbury, and I'd say 20 are pretty much academy level, and 15 of them are under 11, under 12, you know, they're amazing. So yeah, I think that the WSL doesn't help itself as much as it could do, but I sort of understand why, because, you know, they are just focused on what they're doing. but I do think they could open their doors a little bit or their minds a little bit more and
That's it.
allow people to come in. So things like you said, Benny, like these soccer schools, we will run a soccer school in the holidays, probably the summer holidays. But if we could do it with Manchester United or with Arsenal or Chelsea or Reading, it would offer us much more attraction and we get many more girls there.
Absolutely. Sorry, Matt. Go on, mate. You go first, pal.
No, I was just going to jump in because on the subject of role models and things like that. And what I was going to say was obviously I get players' time can be limited, but things like that, like going into schools, I think we've missed a trick because we've got a game at Old Trafford next week. And some schools have been given 30 free tickets, which is great, but that's one class. Why hasn't somebody from Man United or even Everton for their way gone in and said, right, we've got, I don't know, Katie Zellum in today. She's from round here. She's got 200 tickets. She's going to do your PE lesson today. Here, have your tickets.
Do you know what, Matt? That is a good point because Old Trafford's not going to be a sellout. You know, it's not far from a sellout. It's not far from a sellout. But why haven't we done that with the Manchester United Foundation? Usually we're very good at sending players into schools with the foundation. They're going to go, here's X amount of tickets for your schools. We'll have a little fun PE session or a little fun sports day or whatever it may be. We'll set the captain of Manchester United, Katie Zellum, and we've got I don't know, Kirsty Hanson alongside her with Martha Thomas or something. Just for an example, there's 3 players there, you know. Or and then for another school, we've sent out Millie Turner. I know she's recovering from an injury, but she still could put on a session. You know, there's Millie Turner there. There's Mary Earps, and there's you know, I don't know, whoever else. You know, whoever else you could pick out of that squad list. You know. And even if you sent like someone like Matt Skinner to a school, you know, just to say, have a chat, maybe put on a training session with Martin Ho, you know, send you 2 coaches there. I know time's valuable. I know their time's valuable and they've got families and everything. But surely, you know, once they've done training in the morning, at one afternoon, United could have gone to a school and said, look, you're an affiliated school of ours. We're going to send down, we've got a big match at Old Trafford, the women are playing. Do you mind if we send over the captain and a couple of players, you know, to try and inspire the next generation of girls, and you know, give out free tickets to the school, and maybe even open up a stand or a block where they have got school children there that can come with their parents or they can come with the school as a day out, you know, and that big couple of blocks or a stand is all just for them, you know, just to inspire people and just to, you know, and this is what I was going to lead on to, Matt. Sorry, with the Euros coming up as well, we should use, you know, the magic of the Euros. It's going to be in this country, you know. We should use the magic of the Euros now to promote the game, to promote the next generation, to send players into schools and everything.
Don't jump onto that. Just rewind 2 minutes because I haven't finished yet.
Oh, no, sorry. Don't apologise.
The Euros for a minute. I've got to process it. What I was going to say was, and I'll tell you why that works, what we're talking about. We did similar at Wigan Athletic. We'd finish up, we'd take in a player, and we'd get in schools with free tickets. And that said player would put on a session. And you know what? Honestly, it was the best thing we ever did. Like, there was some difficult upbringings for children in sort of areas of Wigan. And honestly, it makes the day. And I think role models is massive. I know, obviously, on a Wednesday when we've had Martha Thomas come down, you want to see like the change in people. Like, it's insane. Like, we were doing it was a couple of weeks ago, and Martha came down, and I was running a session with Laura, and Martha was talking about something about movement, and she stopped the session, and she went in and had a chat. And honestly, the kids are blown away. They're like, oh, Martha Thomas has just stopped our session. And they all thought they'd done something wrong. And she was like, no, there's nothing wrong. It was pointers. And I think things like that, you know, people were saying, oh, well, we've never had that before. And how good's that? You can have a professional footballer come in, coach you. You know, she led the warm-up, and it was just brilliant. And the kids were so switched on. They're asking questions. And it's like, what a great sort of knowledge to tap into. I just think not even for the Old Trafford game, I think as a general, you know, we've worked at our school with United Foundation. You know, we've had coaches come in, brilliant. If you can get players in, a bonus. But I think girls football in general is missing a trick by not having better links with local sides. It doesn't have to be United. There's United, there's City, there's Blackburn, there's so many teams. It doesn't even have to be the top 2 tiers in football. Burnley, 3rd tier, for example. There's so many clubs out there doing great work that I just feel like at times use your resources. It does. You said, does it fall on the FA? It does, but it also falls on clubs themselves. Let's get people out there. And that's how you grow the game in general. Because Katie Zellum, you say, oh yeah, she came to our school, we did this, we watched them at Old Trafford. I want to go next year. I want a season ticket, or I want to go for the next 4 or 5 remaining home games of the season. And that's the way to do it. And it's the word opportunity. And then you might want to play. I've seen, well, such a body did this and they struggled. For me, linking PE is massive, because we've got so many kids that struggle in my school academically that are insane at PE, because it's not reading and writing. They just need to have a love for sport, to work hard, and it's something different. And you're outside, it's not sat at a desk. It's it's not structured as such in terms of like, right, we're going to do this, we're going to plan this, we're going to write this, we're going to calculate this. It's fun. And I think that's massive. And role models, like I say, before we go off to Euros and things like that, is huge. And it really does. You want to see the difference in the kids that really struggle in PE, because the kids that struggle in maths and English are probably some of the best at PE. And it's just having that chance to showcase what they can do. Go on to Euros now. Sorry.
No. Well, I was trying to link it all in together.
We're all kind of build the
Euros, and it links back to the FA as well with the Lionesses and everything. And I fair enough. I know the Lionesses are in England are usually based in London and in the Midlands and that, but it'd be a fantastic opportunity at the end of the season, of the current league season. I know players like to probably jet off maybe a little bit for a week or two before they have to come back and start training with the national sides. But wouldn't it be amazing if you just had, you could just send, even if it's just a few schools, just send some of the Lionesses in there just to promote the Euros, and put on the training sessions for girls. And you can also link it in with boys as well. We used to have, again, back when I was a kid, we used to train with the girls as well. We used to train, and they used to have, obviously women's football is a lot bigger than it was now, but we used to have like semi-pro, semi-professional, girls from semi-professional teams coming in and leading training sessions for us. Even as boys, mind were blown. We were like, wow, we wouldn't have thought of doing this. We wouldn't have thought of doing that. And like you said, Matt, that they'll hold up a training session to go, well, if you think about this, if you do this type of movement and that type of movement, you may lose that centre half that's marking you. If you just make this through run at this particular time, you might be able to just split the 2 centre halves and someone can feed the ball through to you, and you're free on goal, just try and beat the goalkeeper or something like that. Do we miss the trick though? And is there another? This is another question I'll ask, and I'll ask both of you this one. Is there enough PE sessions these days? Should there be more? Do you know what I mean? When you got not being funny before I end. You got topics like RE. What the hell good is that going to do, people? Unless you want to be a vicar later on in life. What do you need that for in school? Should there be more sport? And I'm not just talking about football, but sport in general. Should there be more sport played at schools?
Go on, John. I'll let you go.
Yeah, I'm with Benny. I mean, RE, I think it was called, wasn't it?
Yeah, RE, yeah. That was just the first topic on the
Yeah, I think there should be more sport, of course. If I could I'll come back to that. If I could just put a couple of points on what we were talking about. Matt said about FA level 1s earlier, and I call it speak and spell, seriously, but it's designed to get coaches to coach teams because there isn't enough of them. So I understand why it's like that. That encouraged me to get my 2 and my 3 and my B, etc. We also were talking about how difficult it is because the world has gone PC, and I understand with kids, but it is so much paperwork. You have to be safeguarding everything, so it does take a lot up. And a couple of other quick things was there's a lot of people banging on about the most important thing for women's football is to have away ends. I understand people want to have away ends, but for me, the biggest form of getting more crowds is to do what you guys have just said and go into schools, because children are the future. They're going to be the ones who will bring their parents who might not even come if their daughter didn't want to go and watch a football match. So that is more important. I understand it may lead to away ends because there's, swearing and stuff like that, which some kids obviously don't want to be around. Do you know what I mean? And stuff like that. So that for me is much more important, what you guys said, going into schools and giving away tickets, because they're going to make money with drinks and food and programs and everything, So that's my off my soapbox now. But yeah, so what you said as well, important for the Lionesses to promote the Euros, go into schools, and talking to schools. Matt's obviously much more qualified than me to talk about that, but I do think that the PE slots are just so minimal. I know you've got to fit a whole school into a week, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's about having qualified teachers, isn't it? That's what it's about. And enough teachers. So many teachers per number of children. That teacher's got to be safeguarded. You can't get somebody to come in and help. They've got to have their safeguarding and everything, which I understand. But it would almost be relevant if they overloaded the teachers for sports, because that's what's going to get you healthy. I understand religion's important. It's one of the most important things in the world. It's probably the biggest cause of war in the world, different subject, and biology and stuff like that. I get all of that, and that's important. But health, fitness, mindset, that's so much more important these days. That's the people that have longevity of life and actually achieve.
I think on that, Benny, as well, I think for me, you go in, my school, we do 2 hours a week of PE, which people might think that's poor, but actually, if you go in the majority of schools, they do an hour out of 5 days. And listen, I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm saying stuff isn't relevant on the curriculum. There is stuff you question, is what I will say. And I do think that something that is undervalued is the stuff that transfers from PE into subjects, i.e. behaviour. Things like, i.e. working as a team or with your classmates, things like that, problem solving as well. And I think it bugs me when people come in my sort of PE lessons and say, I need to pull such a body out. What for? To read. Well, why are you pulling them out of PE? Why don't you pull them out of something like art, like design and technology, something where, without sounding horrible or rude, that it's not as important. And I hate saying that, and I probably shouldn't say that, but I will be honest, is that, it's always, and John will probably tell you, it's always PE that kids are pulled out of. Such a body's not done the spellings. Right, we'll go and pull them out of another lesson. But when they only get an hour in most schools, 2 hours tops, you're trying to take that away, which, might help little Tommy with his behaviour, or such a person with the confidence. You're killing that creativity. And that's my biggest bugbear. That's where it is going wrong, because the opportunities and the knowledge is limited as it is. And then you're doing that. And I know at my school, we do have three lots of extra, I can say it, 3 lots of extracurricular activities a week, and that's outsourced to qualified coaches, which is fine, and parents pay for that, which is great. But yeah, I think as a general, it's the bane of my life that there's only an hour, maybe 2 tops a week, when, like John said, the physical aspect of it and the benefit, even mentally, I'm not saying that kids of that age do hugely suffer mentally, but some of them come from difficult backgrounds. And I just think, like you say, I've talked about my low achievers being my high achievers in PE, and like John said, it's difficult when you're on your own because you can't get people in as such unless they're in the business that are, come as standard with safeguarding and stuff like that. But I just think in mine, like, I've got a teaching assistant in my class. Does she come in and teach PE? No, because that's just something that they don't. It just seems to be a school thing. It's very rare you'll get a teacher, and it's sort of, it needs to improve, because for me, there needs to be 2 of you. When you're teaching it, you've got a class of 28 to 30. A teaching assistant that knows what they're doing, saying, right, well, actually, these lot are struggling. Let me go and take them 10 and work with those, and you take the rest, because that's what you do in a normal lesson. And it sounds like I'm sitting here slating schools, and I probably am, to be fair, but it makes a massive difference. It seems to be treated as something like a separate entity. And if that was like a maths lesson and I've got people struggling, they don't get left. That's my job as the teacher, to go and bring them up. but with support. So, you know, your teaching assistant may take some, or you may, however it's done, you know, or interventions. But yet in PE, it seems like, oh, well, no, the teacher can do that. And it's like, there's a limited amount of time as it is. I can't pull kids out of maths for an intervention in PE. And I certainly couldn't do it in English and anything, you know, any lesson. So I don't see why it's any different for PE, but I better not get myself in any more potential trouble. And I could rant and rave about education all day long. But for me, if they improve that and nail that and get that right, we're looking at a whole different ball game for me.
Problem is, like you said, the limited school hours. Sorry, pal. Go on, mate. Go on, John.
I just I was just going to say that is relevant to what one of your questions was earlier, as to does it mean that we will suffer at a later or a higher level? It does,
absolutely.
Because if you're gonna, what they're doing is they're saying PE is a second class subject. Because it's always PE or physical activity that suffers when somebody needs to go and redo their lines or redo their spellings, or if an after school club has to be cut. I'm sorry to cut in on you there, but that is relevant to what you asked earlier. Another reason as to not being taught to head the ball because you're not allowed to head it, or the art of tackling's going, is the fact that in our schools, which do much more than what we do, the schools are there. They're the bread and butter of kids learning in any subject. It's always the sports side, the physical side that suffers. And that's another addition. Again, not the FA's fault. That's another addition which will hinder us as they grow up and as they get to a higher level. Sorry to cut it.
No, what I was going to say was just that when I was at school, we had 4 PE teachers. 4, you know.
Most schools now, to be fair.
Is that most schools now?
In primary, high school's a lot better. High school, we had 4 to 5 hours of PE a week.
Yeah.
Good,
well, even in high school now, I seem to think there's not enough PE. There's not enough PE there. I know there's only limited hours in a school day, you know, in a school week. But as I said, it's just disappointing to hear that, you know, that's still going on, because that used to go on when I was a kid. You know, somebody struggling in maths, pull them out of PE. Somebody needs to redo their mock SATs test because they failed badly. Pull them out of PE. You know, and the one thing that I used to love as a kid was PE. I wasn't the greatest at school. I hated all subjects, but PE, I love PE, and I went on to do GCSE PE. I don't know if that's still a thing, by the way. And I struggled badly at that. The theory side of it, but they just for the extra sport, I loved it. You know, yes, I failed miserably in my written test, but my physical test and everything, you know, on the actual practical side, I passed with flying colours. I just couldn't get a grasp of how the heart works and stuff like that. That wasn't ever me. I only picked that subject. I'd get away with doing extra sport, you know. And I just feel it's a bit of a shame now, you know, in a day and age where obesity is now, especially in this country, is a big, big problem. And it's like, well, what we're doing to tackle it in schools, you know, we're pulling people out of PE, you know, yes, I know a lot of kids don't like PE. They look at it and go, a lot of kids shy away from it as well. I know there's a big chunk when I was in school. They used to shy away. They used to say, oh, I've got PE kit, or they used to bring in fake notes so to skip PE. But eventually, we used to be good at the school that I was at, because we used to have really good PE teachers that got them involved. And eventually, after a couple of PE sessions, these were loving it. You know, we're never going to go on and play for the school teams or anything like that. But just to be included, just to have fun, you know, and just to be, included, by their other pupils as well, because some of them, you know, used to get bullied at school and everything. But once, you know, they started having fun with their fellow pupils, it used to bond pupils as well. I know it's a different day and age these days, and I know schools are run completely different to when they were back when I was in school. But it's just disappointing to hear that PE is still the one that has the least amount of time going for it, and people are getting pulled left, right, and centre out of it. You know, to do their maths. Why can't we incorporate maths sort of learning skills into PE? You know,
you can. That's just poor teaching if you don't. I'll be honest.
Let's incorporate a bit of English. I don't know how we could do it, but I'm sure there'll be a way of doing it into PE, to make a PE fun, to make your learning a bit fun. People engage in learning when it's fun. And I just think that we hinder ourselves all the time by
Well, that's why when you said kids hate PE, why did they hate PE? Well, they hate PE because it's been probably an absolute woeful lesson. We've not learned anything. It's not fun. You're talking about there about learning. English and maths is delivered every day in school, every single day.
Yeah.
Now, when because I do a lot of the PE still on sort of work with a coordinator at school. And, one thing we incorporate, we've got a nursery attached to the school. We'll go in the nursery. We'll do things involving colours and counting to 5 because that's their level. Right, go and get me 5 cones. Go and get me 5 red cones. Go and put your football and balance it on a blue cone. There's so much you can link in. English, again, you can link in storytelling. There's loads. I could be here all evening, but no excuse. There really isn't. And the reason why people have a bad attitude towards sports, PE, I hate PE, and come up with these excuses is because of lower down. If you've not got that love for it at a young age, when you get older, you probably can't be mithered. And I've always had a rule, and it was something that when I was in high school, the PE department there said, listen, fit for school, fit for PE. If you said you forgot your kit, you were made to do it in uniform and did adapt to what you do.
That's
playing football. They'd say, right, you don't need your kit for ping pong. Go and hit some table tennis balls or, it's massively adaptable. There's all sorts you can do. We have kids that are sort of disabilities and educational needs. We still adapt PE. And
absolutely.
That's what you do in general. That is PE. So I think, there's loads of work to be done. I could sit here for another hour easily, Benny.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to keep from his precious time as well.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. But that's why there is a bad attitude towards sports. 1, because it's not delivered enough, and 2, because it's probably delivered poorly and people switch off. Anyway.
Just finally, just finally for me, John. Do you find it a struggle to get people to uptake in sports at grassroots levels to come into your academy to have a tasting session, or do you find that now is having a steady stream coming in, or you just overbooked completely? You're having to turn. And I'm not saying you turn people away. Do you have to have a booking system maybe, or is there a waiting list, or are you struggling to get people in? And we've still got a lot of work to do to get kids into sport.
We've got lots of work to do. We're lucky at Newbury and Slough. They're established centres where we've got a lot of calls. We need more girls at Manchester. However, we are still establishing ourselves. We've got some streams, like Laura's part of a club, a girls' club, which we need to tap into. I'm preparing something for the guys to go to send to schools. I've got 3 interviews with schools in Wokingham, but another new centre we're opening up soon, but to go into the schools and basically I call it hedgehog darts. You just throw everything you can get, and I sent 20 emails, got 5 responses of yes, actually wanting me to go in and do a presentation and take some sessions. And 15 didn't even get back to me, but I'm happy with that, at the moment. I mean, that's a good start. We need to do that in Manchester. We're opening up in West London, which we're pretty happy with the numbers we've already got there. London's massive, by the way.
Of course,
There still is more that can be done. We're lucky. We're unique in the respect of that we do have pros come occasionally, which inspires the girls and is an attraction. And once they've been there once, I hope that the coaching that I deliver at the sessions, the centres I'm at, and the coaches that we get, including Matt, who deliver the sessions at the other centres that I'm not at, is at a level that the girls know they're learning. So once they're here, unless it's not for them, like they don't want to go forward, we're quite clear that this is for girls who want to try and get a career or a scholarship in America, which we do, which can be another show. Then, if you don't want to come, that's fine. There's no hard feelings. It's entirely up to you. But it's a different level you get generally from your team, because as Matt said again earlier, it's pretty much level 1 coaches, parents, volunteers, and they just do it. And they do 1 session a week and they turn up and they put the goals up and they put a team together. The best teams where I am, it's a real shame because you can still see them winning 8-0, but you could count on one hand how many times they put 3 passes together. It's just brilliance of certain players that win the matches. So then you've got to feel for the other teams. So so we've got good numbers. We're developing now by going into schools, and then we're going to approach teams that probably struggle, just to say, do you want us to come down and do a session, just to show you what we can do, get your girls more engaged, more switched on. It's still we're doing well, but there's a lot of work still to do, mate, all across everywhere, even for us.
Absolutely, Matt. Matt, any other points to add, pal?
No, I'm pretty much like I say, there is, but another show.
Another show. That's I don't want to take too much of John's time up because I know he's a busy man.
That's all right. I enjoy it. I love it. It's great to come on and talk about football.
Absolutely,
Benny. Do you want me to wrap up for the rest of the week?
Please, mate. Please, if you would.
Yeah. Tomorrow, then, obviously, as normal, the weekly catch-ups go out for any shows missed. The schedule will be out tomorrow evening. We've got episode 6, I think it is, of Teammates.
But it is episode 6, mate, yeah.
It is. I'm glad you know. That much going on in my head. It's just like... but yeah, episode 6, we've got 2 more. The final 2 staff members from FC United. Sharing the... what should we call it? Sharing the stories, we'll call it. It does get a little bit brutal now and then, but it's all good-spirited. And to be fair, they all take it well. It's never to out anyone either. So, yeah, episode 6 of Teammates, and we've got, there's not many left of them now. I think we've got 3 or 4 more to sort of put out there, and then that's done. So we've got that tomorrow. I think John might be at Stourbridge. I know I'm on the road with FC. We're up at Durham. So there's content on that as well. And then obviously this week, Monday, Tuesday shows as normal. Thursday, Friday shows. Ours next Saturday, and then the big one at Old Trafford. So lots to come this week, lots of different things, different shows as per. So yeah, another busy week for us.
Absolutely. And before we end, John, if somebody wants to get involved with Get Pro Academy or wants to even just some more details on, how to get their children involved, how would they go about doing that, pal?
Social media is obviously quite a good one. We've got at Get Pro Academy on Instagram, and we've also got at GPA Manchester, GPA Newbury, at GPA Midlands. So we set up their individual ones as well, but at Get Pro Academy is the main one on Instagram. At Get Pro Academy 1 is on Twitter. So we can, and we've got all the separate ones as well, or we've got a website, www.getproacademy.org. It will tell us we're completing that, we're building that, which will tell you about all the centres, all the coaches, special days we've got lined up for scholarships, and also specialist days where we're going to have goalkeeping days with Hermione, defending days with Elenia when she's fit, and perhaps Gemma from Reading, and then hopefully a striker day with Martha. But again, we're just going to get all that on the website. But just go along. All the details are there. If you're in Manchester, you can contact Matt, Chris, or Laura as well. And just basically give it a try. There's no pressure. All we want to do is help your girls improve and provide opportunities for them.
Absolutely. You're a top man, John. A top man. Thank you for coming on again, pal. It's a pleasure to have you, mate. And keep going. Just keep on doing the job that you're doing, mate. With the academy, man. You're providing an absolute service to everybody in this country. Up and down. It's not in one area, which is a good thing, mate. You're doing it up and down the country, opening new centres galore, mate. I applaud you on that. I wish there was more people like you out there to give the next generation a chance, a good chance of playing football at the highest level, especially the girls, as we know, and I'm glad Ian Wright's come out and he's written an article and he's putting the women's football back in amongst the headlines. We're just saying as well, Matt, before we are ending, that Adidas Predator have launched a boot, just a women's only boot, I think it is, isn't it? And we have Laura Woods presenting it, and obviously United players have been on it and all sorts, So that's also good as well, And it's good that the women's game is getting this, this publicity positive publicity as well. You know, big companies like Adidas coming out now and putting out adverts like that with Laura Woods, the Manchester United team, and various other players on there from different WSL sides and what have you, which is good to see. Long may that continue. My thank you to Matt. My thank you to John once again.
Thank you.
I think we shall see you in the next one. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.